So my son's working his way up, becoming a young man and attending Leadership Institute events, and happened to be in Washington, D.C. for the congressional baseball game. Now, this is one of the most fun moments all year in Congress because you get Republicans playing Democrats. Both teams have practices. If you remember, there was an unfortunate shooting that took place a few years ago with Steve Scalise at one of these baseball games. That's why it was part of what made it so tragic was this is like one of the few moments where Washington, D.C. gets together and has a little fun. And it is a really fun day out at the ballpark, at the Nationals ballpark. And Jared Polis is often out there playing. It's just a really fun moment in American sports. Well, my son's there with Leadership Institute, spending a whole week. And lo and behold, he's hanging out after the game, and members of Congress are walking by, and he's asking different members if they want to play rock, paper, scissors and trade a hat or a ball. And lo and behold, Representative Marlin Stutzman walks by as my son's asking this, and he is a really good sport. And they play first for a ball, and then the antes get up and up and up. Lo and behold, my son comes home with Marlin Stutzman's cleat. And I'm like, how in the world is this? And it's prominently displayed on his desk. He's thrilled. Young man, never going to forget this. Great memory and a good sport. So I tweet about this and thank Marlin Stutzman for being a good sport and giving my son a good memory he'll never forget. Well, we end up having a conversation. He tells me some of the work he's doing in Congress, and this is important. We'll talk about that in a second. But he's joining the show, Representative Marlin Stutzman, Congressman from Indiana's 3rd District. Good morning, sir. Thank you for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Great to be with you guys. It was a fun night, and you described the story well. You got a great boy there.
Thank you. He's going to love this, and I know he's listening. Well, Marlin, first of all, you guys won the game. It was a big victory for Republicans. Talk about that.
Yeah, so as you described, I mean, it's a great event. I mean, of course, baseball is America's pastime, and the Congressional Baseball Game for Charity is for such a great cause. It's for the Boys and Girls Club in D.C., and we raised almost $3 million for that particular event. And it's also, like you said, it's a bipartisan event where Republicans play Democrats. And, ever since I was first elected to Congress, I've always played in the game, and it's such a good rivalry, and of course we have a lot of fun with it, but we also take it seriously because, of course, if you're in politics, you don't like to lose, and so you want to win. And so when a young guy asks you, for your hat or for a ball or whatever, and you start playing rock, paper, scissors, you don't know how far it's going to go, and I lost my shoe, and so at least I walked out of there with my shirt on.
Marlin Stutzman, representative from Indiana's 3rd District. And we had Representative Jeff Crank in yesterday, and I asked Jeff, great friend of the program, if he was part of the baseball team. He said, no, because you got to practice at 5 in the morning. So tell folks about the practices and the commitment that goes into the congressional baseball game.
Yeah, no, he's right. So Roger Williams, congressman from Fort Worth, Texas, is the coach. And he used to play in the Atlanta Braves baseball organization. In fact, he'll tell us stories sometimes about Hank Aaron, and he even played against Willie Mays. And so he's making us, in 2025, take this as seriously as Willie Mays and Hank Aaron. And of course, we're working long hours in Washington, and usually it goes early in the morning to late at night. So if we want good practice time, we're up at 5 a.m. out on the field by 5:30 and warming up. And Coach Williams, he cracks the whip on us, and he starts. So the game is usually the second week in June usually, and we start practices in March. There was a couple of times there was still some snow flurries. We're all out there shivering, but if you don't show up, you don't play. And so that's why it's important to be out there practicing with the team. But it's such a great place to build camaraderie. And I'll tell you what, a lot of business actually gets done out on the baseball field or in the dugout. Senator Ernst comes. She's usually there. Of course, Senator Eric Schmidt. So a couple of the senators are playing, and it's a great place to find out what's going on in the Senate and, what's going on in the House. And so you got the baseball caucus that is not only having a good time playing baseball, but also getting work done out on the diamond.
That voice is Representative Martin Stutzman. No, you don't recognize that. Oh, sorry. What is it? Sorry.
Marlin.
Marlin. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. No, I wrote that. I'm sorry.
All right. I've been called worse.
No. I apologize, Marlin. That's my fault. It's. So, Marlin Stutzman, Congressman, Indiana's 3rd District. I write notes and I wrote down the name. I'm sorry. I apologize about that one. Now, what I want to know is... when you talked about the flurries during baseball practice, that's something that is near and dear to Colorado kids' hearts. That's how we have to start out the baseball season here. Question I've got for you, Representative, do you have baseball in your past? You had cleats. It leads me to believe that you might have a little bit of experience. If so, what was your position as a little leaguer, and why did they not let you play it in the congressional baseball game?
Yeah, no, great question. And yeah, I grew up in loving baseball. I'm a big Cubs fan and also a White Sox fan. My dad took me to my first White Sox game in 1983, and Carlton Fisk, Ron Kittle. They won the pennant that year. And then in 1984, he took me to a Cubs game at Wrigley Field. I was a Ryan Sandberg and Leon Durham fan for many years. I'm still a big Cubs fan. So our family loves baseball. My dad always played fast pitch softball or slow pitch softball. Well, then we grew up playing Little League, and I played either shortstop or pitcher. But then I also, in high school, I went to a really small high school, so we had a small team, but it was a pretty decent team. But, you know, I would pitch one game, and my buddy would catch, and the next game I would catch, and he would pitch, and we would just move around the field. So I played a lot of positions. And, of course, after I got married and, you know, life starts getting busier, I didn't play baseball, but I played a lot of softball with my friends and always took it very seriously. But then over time, when I was in Congress, I tore my labrum in my shoulder, so I couldn't pitch anymore, so it hurts to pitch. But I get it warmed up well enough and get the rust out of it to where I can play infield and outfield and take enough Advil and I can get through the night. It's a lot of fun, and just glad that I can and still play it. Didn't it kind of, you know, when you're playing a national stadium as a congressman, I mean, it kind of fulfills a lot of dreams that I had and a lot of others had of playing, you know, Major League Baseball as a kid. But you got a nice crowd there, and of course it's a very vocal crowd because you have Republicans on one side and Democrats on the other side. And sometimes the president even shows up. Trump was actually at the Kennedy Center that night, so he didn't make it over, but there's a rivalry on both sides with the crowd, and of course you're at the ballpark with nice warm weather, and it's just a wonderful evening.
Now, Representative Marlin Stutzman, any advice you want to give to the Rockies?
Well,
and also, if you're open and you're chasing your major league dreams, they need players and not necessarily good ones. Because have you seen the record? Yeah. So what the hell's going wrong here in the Rocky Mountains? Why don't we have a real team?
Well, hey, I'm a Cubs fan, so once in every 100 years, you know, it may happen. But
so you're saying there's a chance?
There is a chance.
Well, let's talk.
But
Go ahead.
You guys have a great organization, a beautiful ballpark, of course, a great place to play ball in Denver.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's why people go even when the Rockies are terrible. Well, let's talk business now. Representative Marlin Stutzman, you've introduced the Emergency Spending Accountability Act. Love this idea. Tell our listeners what this is all about.
Yeah, you know, great question. And you know what? I mean, just like I grew up on the farm, you know, playing baseball and, you know, playing with the team. And I just think that, you know, some of this stuff and, you know, in farming's tough. And if you take on too much debt, you're going to be out of business before long. And so I introduced the Emergency Spending Accountability Act. You know, we all know we've got $36 trillion of debt. That's huge. And a lot of that has actually accumulated since 1980. Since 1980, the debt was at $1 trillion, and now today it's $36 trillion. Of that debt, 27 trillion of it is publicly held. So some of that debt is held by the government, you know, Social Security Trust Fund and other places where we've loaned to ourselves within government. But of that 27 trillion, 12 trillion of that is from emergency spending. Now, I think a lot of us as Americans, we think that Congress has a rainy day fund that we tap into for emergencies. So just like COVID or a hurricane in Florida, fires in California, whenever there's an emergency, we figure that the federal government's going to come in and help get people's lives back together. Well, $12 trillion of that has been through emergency spending, not through the budget, but just a one-time spending bill over the last several decades. And so my bill says it doesn't prohibit emergency spending, but it says that it has to be paid back within 5 years, rather than just putting it on the credit card and letting it accumulate debt service and interest. We're paying $1 trillion in interest every year on our debt right now. That's as much as what we spend on the military. So I think this is just common sense legislation. It's to raise awareness of how Congress operates and how it behaves. There was an old, somebody said back during the recession, you never let a good crisis go to waste. Well, Congress hasn't, and has added only to the debt that, Jeff, that your son is going to have to pay on for years and years to come. We live in the greatest nation in the world, but if we go bankrupt, it's going to be very hurtful economically to this country, and that's why we got to get things back on track. And this is one of those ways, I think, that just says, look, help take care of Americans, but just pay for it.
That's Representative Marlin Stutzman. Representative, what's been the response from Republican and Democratic colleagues on this bill?
Well, it's been good. I've got quite a few co-sponsors, and a lot of people agree with it in principle. But this is where, us as members of Congress, we've got to take some action. We've got to be sure that we constrain ourselves, because Congress can always change the rules, and that's why it's important to set the rules on budgeting and follow them. And it's always during those crises where we overreact. Congress overreacts and always spends more money than that is necessary. I mean, I'm a business guy. Like I said, I come from agriculture and manufacturing, and if you spend too much money and you don't have the income later, you're in trouble. And so you got to, even under those emergency circumstances, be careful in what you do and how you do it. And you should also sometimes offset that by not spending somewhere else. And it's easy to spend somebody else's money. It's hard when it's your own. And that's what the unfortunate circumstances that we're in. It just seems like too many members of Congress don't want to cut spending. And, for example, we just passed a rescissions package last week that cut out the USAID funding. We found a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. And I also argue, too, that instead of sending money overseas, let's start sending this money back to Americans. I mean, there's so many small towns across this country that could use $1 million for an infrastructure project, or could use $1 million for, a new road. I mean, for real needs, our infrastructure is aging, and instead of sending that money over to parts of the world that don't even like us, let's just use that money at home. Or I have a lot of Hoosiers tell me, just put it towards the debt. They don't like the debt and the deficits. They're afraid that we're going to eventually have a debt crisis, and that's going to have a huge economic impact. So that's where I think a lot of us, we're going to have to realize that we got to cut back. We have to grow the economy, but we also have got to rein in spending, and that's what I'm hoping that this at least drive that conversation to doing that.
That's Representative Marlin Stutzman. He represents Indiana's 3rd Congressional District. He's introduced a bill, the Emergency Spending Accountability Act. Now, reading this bill and reading your statements about it, what it reminds me of is essentially the exploitation of a loophole. And similar to kind of the asylum claims that illegal immigrants will come, the asylum process is an important process for people that are actually being threatened, persecuted in other countries. And what happened was progressives learned, well, if you just show up into this country and claim asylum, well, you're going to be thrown into a system that's going to take years to process, and so there's abuse that's taking place in that system. What it seems to be happening on the spending side is that lawmakers have learned that, well, if we just declare anything an emergency, we can quickly get money for it, not have to go through the appropriations process, and as a result, as you point out, $14 trillion of the $36 trillion can be attributed to this unbudgeted emergency spending. Is that a fair analysis?
Yeah, Jeff, you mentioned, I can tell you've been in Washington, because that's right. And oftentimes, Congress put itself in this, well, this is just what we have to do. We just have to do this. And that's not always that's not necessarily true. I mean, there's times when, think of the private sector. And that's why America is such a great country, is because the people are great. And, it's not that government is the only solution to a circumstance, whenever there's an emergency. Now, I get it. I mean, Congress should be part of it. But, I grew up in a family where my dad and my granddad, whenever there was a tornado in Oklahoma or a hurricane in Louisiana, they were grabbing other people, jumping in a van, and they were headed to those areas to help clean up and rebuild. And there's a lot of private organizations that do that. And I think it's important that, public and private sectors work together. But it's not. You look at the efficiency of the private sector, and when somebody gives a donation to a church or a charity that does work like that, they're always, they're going to be careful how much money they spend and where all the money goes. So, but it just seems like Congress, and we saw this last couple of years with the hurricane damage down in North Carolina and Florida and other parts of the country. They just throw money at it, just keep throwing money at it, and we don't even know where all the money goes. So that's why there has to be greater accountability in this emergency spending, because we shouldn't be putting irrigation systems on golf courses through emergency spending. That's not what the money is for.
That's good financial stewardship. Representative Marlin Stutzman, representing Indiana's 3rd Congressional District, joining Jeff and Bill, has introduced the Emergency Spending Accountability Act. We'll continue to follow that. Be sure to give him a follow on X at Rep Stutzman, Rep STUTZMAN. Sir, thank you so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show and being a really good sport to my son. You gave him a memory he'll never forget.
Oh, it's wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, Representative. And just a little bit of marketing advice. You put accountability into the title of your bill. Congress, accountability. Have you met those people? I'm not certain. I think you're losing people just with the title, sir. Also, just in case. Yeah, go ahead.
No, maybe I can win the American people, but I appreciate the point. Well taken.
Good. And also, just in case one of those Democrats comes over and offers to do rock, paper, scissors with you over any budget deal, take a pass. So far, you've lost those. So just a friendly bit of advice, but I appreciate your time, sir. You've been so much fun today. Thank you.
Hey, absolutely. Jeff, tell your son I said hi, and maybe next year I'll get my shoe back or he wins the other one. So tell him I said hello.
I love that. The gauntlet has been thrown down.
That's right. Representative Marlin Stutzman, thank you again. Have a wonderful day, sir.
Have a great day, sir.
Thanks for having me, guys.